Well, welcome to Family Hour here on the YAHOWAH blog. For those of you who are just now turning in, you'll notice that in addition to the regular cast of characters, we definitely have Kevin, Sir Shorts, swimming in my pool again. He's going to have rights to it before too long. We have Captain Kirk all mended and back on the recovery after catching COVID from his bride. And, this is way after COVID season there, pal. So you may want to catch up. You're a little behind the rest of us, but you're all feeling better?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good.
Thank you very much. COVID is a rough deal.
And that handsome guy underneath the two of them, this gentleman is James Bowen. I always refer to him as JB. The last time that JB and I did a program together would have been about 5 years ago. At the time, you were still in Texas, and we were, of course, on Yada Yahowah radio, trying to deal with all of the issues of blog talk radio.
Oh, there were many.
There were many, and we asked JB if he would be open to coming back. JB not only knows YAHOWAH exceedingly well, he's not only been part of the Covenant family for almost as long probably as Kirk has been.
Very long.
Bet you're going on far more than 15 years. Might be closer to 18. We've been together a long time, right?
Well, it's 20 because it was when me and Patty first started dating. Was when I first found Yada Yahowah, and that was 2000.
Yeah.
You're the elder statements. Okay, so we've been together longer than you had, than even Leah and I have known each other.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
And he's always been a voice of reason.
Yeah, always. There are two things I like about JB for those who are.
And he likes to play devil's advocate.
New to us being together. Is that JB has always been the most effective at finding a potential vulnerability, something where there are other options available to us, and then showing how his choice could be considered equally valid or even more valid from the different perspective, and presenting it in such a way that it is it's thoughtful, it's respectful, it's endearing, it's
logical.
Logical. It's always been one of my favorite things because it's fun to do that because then you can explore other possibilities. And he's just also has a really good sense for what is right and wrong when talking about the things of Yah, and has a good grasp of the vocabulary. And of course, over here in the queen seat with the ever handsome Wookiee, who has stolen Asher's toy from her trip to Florida. This is my lovely bride, Leah. And Leah, we know is smart because, Dode went out of his way to say she's smart. So we're gonna trust the mashal. And over here in the to my right and off camera currently, but he has lights on. He has a camera and a microphone. Would be the keeper of the cables, Rich. Is off there. He is
hiding in the background.
Hiding in the background. If it wasn't for Rich,
I remember JB when I first started listening, and his website was very beneficial to me at the time.
Yes.
So I really appreciate what he's done.
And JB for the longest time had the most comprehensive archives of the early days of Yada Yahowah radio, of Shattering Myths, and all of those 3-hour programs, 15 of those a week. So it was a great site to go to. And then you started your own translations and became very adept at translating. I think you began by saying what we all thought we'd be able to do. I'll just translate this and let people then read it and form their own conclusions. And I told you, good luck with that. I tried that too. but
it lasted about a month and about 6 months as I got more into it. Then I started noticing my comments at the bottom of the page where I would asterisks and add commentary started being half a page.
Yeah, that's what you get to, because when you're really studying the word and you're making those connections and exploring what these terms mean, one of the things that strikes you is that it's so rich. There's so many potential, and you don't want to mislead people by being dogmatic and saying it has to be this. You want to explain what the other possibilities are, how they're related to other thoughts, and how you derive that.
How this connects to
yeah,
that,
definition.
and possibly to this.
Oh yeah, it's sharing what you can learn from Yahweh's testimony that is really the fun part. That's the part.
Oh, the places you'll go.
Yeah, the places
Torah.
the places that take you. So JP did have his own translations and insights, and we learned a lot together. That was back in the day too, when we first began. That Richard was part of our company, and he had his own site as well. Richard was a very unique fellow. He had a great passion and love. He's one of those people that I respect because he had been knocked down in life and got back up. He's one of those who
had character.
Yeah, who grew and developed character and depth of character.
Resilience.
Because of the fact that he had been knocked down and yet gotten back on his feet. And he wouldn't take up from anybody, man.
And hated Larry
you always knew where you stood with Richard. Yep. And sometimes it was, you can get on his bad side and he'd be mad at you for a while. But then, we'd figure out a way to, okay, that wasn't really worth the argument, was it? And you get back going again together. So, yeah, I miss Richard. He passed away quite a few years ago. So we'll get to see him again before too long. We are continuing our series on a very odd title until you know the inside of the whole thing, but it's called The Antichrist. And we obviously are not coming to you as Christians. I have written 5 books denouncing Christianity. All of us, with the exception of Leah, at one time or another, had been associated with Christianity. Well, Leah was associated.
No way, Jose.
Yeah, Leah
no way, Jesus.
Yeah, Leah was associated with it because while she was going to school, all the kids would pull her hair and kick her and tease her and say, "You killed Jesus." Mm-hmm. So
now they punched me in the nose.
They punched you in the nose and said, "You killed Jesus." But the rest of us at one time or another have had some affiliation with Christianity, and all had come to leave it and not just question it, but realize that it was false, and have grown in our understanding of just how utterly false it is and destructive. Yeah. In fact, JB, I don't think we have been together during this time where I've gone from, we have gone from knowing that the Christian New Testament contradicted the Torah and prophets and therefore was not true, but going from that to realizing that it was actually Paul who created the myth of Jesus Christ, that there never was a Jesus Christ, that it's Dode who fulfilled Passover, Matzah, and Bikurim per his own testimony in 33 CE, and the myth of Jesus was created by robbing David, of his accolades, his accomplishments, and probably nothing that would antagonize God more. And it was really by going through the Mizmor again, and particularly paying attention to what was said, not just in the 22nd Mizmor, where Dode describes in first person how he was going to be crucified to fulfill Passover, and then how he would be cut off, taking our guilt into Sheol on Matzah. But when you read the 89th Mizmor, I mean, that's
Seals
God
the
saying,
deal.
Yeah, that's God saying,
Camille.
Everything revolves around Dode.
Mm-hmm.
That he's your savior, he is the Messiah, he is the Son of God, he is the returning King, he is my chosen one, he is the exemplar of the covenant, and
he's
your
my everything.
And he is my everything. And if you take a different view of me and what I am achieving than that, then you're calling me a liar.
He calls him Elyon, literally the hand of God.
Well, yes, he does. Elyon is in the 89th
What,
Mizmor.
he can't read?
Is one of those words that that means a lot to me, because I've gradually come to have an appreciation of it. If you look in the lexicons, all the lexicons will say it means Almighty, but it doesn't mean Almighty. El would be God or Almighty. It's Elyon, and so the on ending, when it's applied to a Hebrew word, means all things pertaining to this. And the one letter in the middle, if it was the yod at the end, you would say, well, it would be my something pertaining to God, or I pertain to God, or me as I pertain to God. But it isn't at the end.
It is unknown.
It's in the middle. And so the yod speaks of the very hand and influence of God. And it says that this is God's, all things concerning God's hand is the term Elyon. Now that's pretty good. If you want to get a term to describe who you are and what your relationship is with God, that's
how many hands are there in Yahweh's name? 5
hands. But the lead hand, that first hand,
that's the big one.
That's the big one. And it's a combination. There are lots of ways to look at Yahweh's name, and one of the ways the way I like to look at it the most is that it is Yahweh's hand, actually, that is the upper arm coming down, the forearm reaching out, and the open hand reaching to lift us up. And then there's two people on either side of a tent peg.
Reaching up.
People that the tent peg makes the home or the tabernacle larger and more secure. And the wall means to add to, so the people are increased. And it also makes the connection between those two people.
So if you take away the Wah in Yahweh's name, what do you effectively do, sir?
It's no longer anchored. It's no longer additive, and it no longer brings those two people together. The Wah is what connects those two people. So if you wanted to understand Yahweh's name, you would look for a connection between two people who are very involved in either making the covenant with him possible, or reintroducing people to his name and to Dode's role in the covenant. Or
two men that are enacting two moed that are very significant.
Yeah, it would certainly apply to that, or a greater and lesser luminary. It's certainly that way. I had back in the time we were last together, JB, I had surmised that the two people could be Abraham and Sarah. But the problem with that is that very little of what Abraham says is right. I mean, Abraham,
and he doesn't have a very good.
He's involved in a narrative that leads us to understanding the covenant, but almost everything he suggests and even comments on along the way, and then does independently, is not good.
No, immoral.
And Sarah, as much as I respect and love her for her saying, get that slave woman out of here and her kid, because they're really messing up with your thinking, Abraham. So get them out of here. And I respect her for laughing. You got to have a lot of personal
chutzpah.
Yes, chutzpah. To laugh at something God says. If God says you're going to have a kid, and you've got
I would have laughed too.
And you've got the nerve to
I
laugh.
would have done that. Yeah, I would have
laugh
laughed too.
That says you're really comfortable with God. I like that a lot. And I like the fact that Yahweh said to Abraham, when he was trying to make a very difficult decision, God said, I'm not going to tell you what to do. Listen to your wife. That's pretty cool. So there's lots of things to like about her.
Everything good happened in Sarah's time.
But I can tell you that Sarah would not have been the temptress to enrich Abraham if she hadn't played along somehow. And so I don't think that she was set up totally independently. And I think it was her decision to have a kid through her slave.
Yes.
And that was a bad decision.
It was.
And neither Sarah, and Sarah doesn't have very many talking parts. There's not a lot that you can glean from her. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that Abraham and Sarah do not enable the covenant. All they do is they provide a narrative. They're the the persons, the individuals Yahweh is talking.
They're the prequel.
Well, not even a prequel. They're the narrative regarding the covenant. Yahweh explains the covenant through them. Mm-hmm. There really is no covenant in terms of our ability to access it until Dode fulfills Pesach, Matzah, and Makotim, until Yahweh uses Dode as the exemplar. And the beauty of that is that, Dode, he's pretty much a regular guy, smarter than maybe anyone else, but otherwise he's a regular guy. He brave, certainly, smart, articulate, musical, a Renaissance man is what we'd call him, but he was flawed. And so Yahweh used him as the exemplar for the covenant, and I think that makes us feel much more at home and comfortable. Matter of fact, I was translating Numbers Bamidbar 13 today, finishing it, writing my commentary on it, and we see Moshe do another. Well, it's not even a meltdown. This time, he is just flat out rude, disrespectful to God. I don't know if you ever read what he said, but he was talking about his cheer him up speech, to go in there and investigate the land. He's saying, I want you to tell me if it's good or terrible. I want you to tell me if there's any trees there or if there's anything there that's worthwhile. Tell me if this land is any good. Can you imagine Yahweh saying, I'm going to give you this as this is my gift? And he's saying, it'd be like a sort of saying,
sweetheart, you've never been to a Jewish wedding, have you?
But it'd be like, yes,
complain
I
about
have.
Everything.
Yes, I have. But it'd be like somebody saying, okay, God, I appreciate the invitation to heaven. But can I check it out first? To see if it's up to snuff. And I don't want to have to do much work, so I don't want to. I don't want a project here. So I want to make sure it's up to snuff. And that is essentially what we're hearing from Moshe.
Yeah.
And you're going, why would you say that? Why would you? And then he says, I want to know.
Because it sounds so Jewish.
Are the people big? Are they fierce? Are they in little settlements? Are they in fortified cities? I just said, I'm going to remove them. You're going to go in there and they're going to be gone. They're going to dispossess the land. And I'm giving it to you. And you're worried of whether or not they got a wall?
Yeah. How hard am I going to have to work for this free stuff? How hard am I going to have to work for this free stuff? Yeah.
Oh, God, when you read what he had to say, you just say, why would you do that to God? So, it's the advantage in all of this, though, is that it brings Moshe down to our level.
They all come down to our level.
They all come down to our level.
That's why I'm here, because was never the religious nut job.
Yeah.
I never had the desire to dig into any of this stuff. These are ordinary people.
Yes.
In extraordinary circumstances.
They are. They're ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. And God was able to make it work with ordinary people and extraordinary circumstances, which is why he picked the lot of us to do this through. This is God's style. So I think it is, it's an amazing read when you approach it from that point of view. Of course, I'm into the 13th chapter because God directed us when we had the rebellion, the Mother Goddess cult. We were directed to the 12th chapter of Numbers, which is written precisely for our situation. And then when we were trying to ascertain how it is possible for God to say somebody is a prophet, and for that person to be learning on the job and therefore have to go back and improve and correct things as you go along. And we went back to Numbers 11, where Moshe said some really, really dumb stuff. I mean, things that I'm positive he'd like to have back. And you realize, okay, God said he's the greatest of the prophets, and yet he got a lot of stuff wrong. And then you look at Dode, who is the most prolific of the prophets, and boy, did he get stuff wrong. And then you look at every one of them, and when they speak for...
Well, I guess that shatters your theology that they have to be perfect.
Yeah, well, of course it does. And Yahweh even says that Abraham was a prophet. And there's very little that Abraham said that was right. So what you learn is that you're a prophet because God says, I'm going to speak through you. I'm going to communicate to people through you. But if you were perfect, then it would be no purpose in speaking through you. I might as well use just a megaphone, because you're not going to flavor it in any way. You're not going to be any different from me. As a matter of fact, if you're perfect, what would be the point of a relationship?
What would be the point of needing to be perfected?
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine being married to a perfect woman?
Oh, kill me now.
That would be miserable. Every moment you would say, oh, my God, I can't measure up to this. So, no, God doesn't want perfection. He takes away our blemishes so that we are acceptable in his perspective. But we, in our English definitions, our human definitions, have a real problem with perfect in terms of what the word actually means from God's perspective, and how he is perfecting us, but yet we maintain our individuality and our uniqueness, and that's what makes us all interesting in the end. So it just has been an interesting story. So that's why I went into Numbers 11, is because the greatest of the prophets had serious issues. And yet he got with the program, and he got him into the promised land, even with tripping on his tongue occasionally. And then, from there, we've had the enabler of the rebellion then come and commit a series of criminal acts against us, bring down the Yada Yahowah site through hacking.
Cyber squatting.
And when we experience that, you're saying, all right, how do you want me to deal with it? I will ask Yahweh from time to time. You say, okay, is there a specific plot? You told me the plot for Numbers 12 of what to do if a woman says, oh, I also speak for God. Yeah, he said, yeah, she's, as far as I'm concerned, it's except for father spit in her face. She's leprous. Throw her out of the community. And then the last we hear of her, God says, she's the example of what it is to be divorced from me.
Set her out of the camp and tell the others that she is unclean.
So he told us how to do that. I said, so what do we do with someone who is this belligerent relative to our property, the Yada Yahowah site, replacing our books with his BS? And
which is a federal crime.
Yeah. So I was immediately...
we're not supposed to talk about felony investigations right now.
Yeah. Okay. So I was immediately drawn to, well, why didn't you finish the story in Numbers? I took you there. Why not finish the story in Numbers? And I said, well, okay, well, I can go into... I was planning on doing the story of the spies anyway, because it's just so obnoxious towards Yahweh that I was going to do that anyway. And so I reread it and reread it in Hebrew a few days ago. And it ends with the story of the man, which is, it's claimed that he was picking up sticks on the Sabbath, and Yahweh said, go stone him to death. And
Shmuley the stick guy.
Yeah, and so, that's the stick guy, stone the stick guy.
Schmuck.
And it's always been the passage that, well, I have translated it once, I commented on it once, and I just said I'm really uncomfortable with it. And every time somebody asked me to go back to it, I say, I'm really uncomfortable with it because there's no context for it, so I don't understand the reason for it. And wow, so I read the whole thing in Hebrew, and right up to this explanation of where God says, all right, because of what the survivors that I'm going to actually let into the land, because all of you who have been with me from the beginning, with exception of Yahusha, Ben Nun, and Caleb, you're just going to be a pile of corpses. And he went over and over again. You're a pile of corpses. That means you can't be touched. You You are left here.
It's
you
unclean.
Are dead.
Yep.
To me. You're untouchable to me. And he goes through and says, because of mistakes now, we need to come up with a plan so that we can resolve this going forward. And the plan that he comes up with involves a lamb. And that lamb is all a sacrificial lamb, all mixed with, the three ingredients, the purified grain, the olive oil, and the wine of inheritance. And then it says, okay. So that's going to be the first step in solving your propensity to be constantly mistaken. The next step is we're going to have a bull. Mm-hmm. And we're going to sacrifice the bull. And we're going to also mix the bull with all of those ingredients. Yep. And the bull is the second step in resolving your propensity to disrespect me, is what God's saying. Okay. So we got the lamb, we got the bull. Then for good measure, guess what we're going to add to the equation? A goat. A goat. And so now you're back to Daniel with the three characters. You got the lamb, you got the bull, you got the goat, and all working together in the end days. He says, so I'm going to throw in here, we're going to have the goat for good measure. And you're going, okay, I see where this is leading. And so he goes, then explains what the goat's going to contribute. And immediately after that, you find a guy out, and he's not so much picking up sticks. That's not the word that's used.
He's uprooting trees.
He's uprooting trees. It's trees. And so you're reading this and you says, oh my God, I know about two trees. There's two trees in the garden that explain all of this. There's the tree of lives, of which Dode is the shamak, the main branch. And then there's the tree of knowledge of both good and bad, right and wrong.
Which is Yada.
And while that tree of good and bad, right and wrong can lead you back to the tree of lives, which is why he had to kick him out of the garden, because you can't go back to the tree of lives until Yahweh was ready and already paid the price to enable this to happen. But you got these two trees, and you got Dode representing the tree of lives. He is the big branch, the shamak of that tree of lives. And then you got this other guy that comes along much later that is the noun version of his name. Yada is the verbal version, which means to go about the process of knowing and understanding. But Dayat is the noun version of Yada. And that it's the tree of Yada by Dayat, of providing information to show what's right and to show what's wrong. Religion, politics.
You can't have knowledge without Dayat.
So you're dealing now and with God saying, okay, now at the end, my solution is I'm going to have the tree of knowledge is going to produce these books out of trees that lead my people back to the shamak, the tree of lives, who is Dode, who opened the doorway to life. And so this guy was out plucking up the damn trees. This is Yahweh's way to come back and to resolve this problem. And he was up doing that on the Shabbat. And of course, what day was Dode cut off so that we could live with our Father? What day of the week was that?
A Shabbat.
A Shabbat. Matter of fact, it's not just a Shabbat, but all things pertaining to matzah are a Shabbat. And I don't know if JB, you heard the program and read it, but I've gone back through everything in Daniel. And one of the things that I learned is that the 476 years and 21 days from the vernal equinox that would have been the first of Nisan or Abib in Babylon when the decree was given. And if you go the 476 years from 444 BCE, it takes you to 33 CE, and the vernal equinox on 33 CE, when the first light of the moon would have begun to grow. And in that 1 year, just so that the days work out perfectly, it is the only year within 100 that the vernal equinox and the first renewing light on the moon's surface is exactly the same day. Mm-hmm. And it happens to be on a Friday, such that Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim all transpire so that the Pesach dinner can be on a Thursday night. The lamb can be sacrificed on a Friday, such that the next day you're celebrating matzah, where Dode would then be cut off, but not for himself. And then the following morning, he becomes the firstborn of firstborn children. And such that the celebration of Chag Matzah lasts how many days? 7, right? So if you add the 20 days to the 476 years, and it doesn't just take you to the first of Abib and 476, I'm assuming 33 CE, it takes you to the last day of Chag Matzah. So he's saying, I'm going to give you the date that says I'm fulfilling Chag Matzah, not just Pesach. So it really is brilliant with the timing and all. So, this whole thing is designed to draw our attention back to Dode opening the doorway to life, and him being the Shemach. This, in fact, one of the Mizmor that we shared in the Ocean Studio a couple of days ago was specifically said that Dode's name is Shemach.
Yes.
He's not just a symbol of this great branch of the tree of life. He is. Yeah, he is Shemach.
And not to play teacher's pet, but if you want a secondary witness to this narrative, it is in Kara, 20 through 24.
Yeah. And you're this adulterous and leprous mother goddess cult has gone so far as to say that there cannot be a Adamah Parah, this bull, who is productive, that is sacrificed on Towrah because there's no human sacrifice.
Very rabbinical of you.
And you're going, okay, so then Dode did not fulfill Pesach, I guess, according to you. And oh, by the way, and I like to repeat this because it is such a rebuke of rabbinic Judaism. And so, if you don't mind, we'll just repeat it now. Do animals have bodies?
Yes.
Bashar?
Yes.
Yeah. Do humans have Bashar bodies?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. Okay. So we both have Bashar bodies. So is there really a difference between, we're all animals, between the sacrifice of an animal, regardless of what the animal is, for a particular purpose? Does our body make us human? Did God say, I created all of these animals, and I created these mammals in the last day, and oh, by the way, a human here, he's just another animal. Does he actually say that? So, he is saying that we all have a nefesh soul, and we all have these physical bodies. So he's really equating us to animals at that point. He says,
and he calls people without an asama.
He says, he says there's only one thing that distinguishes humanity from other animals, the Nesama.
Yeah.
So if a person chooses to fulfill a Moed Mikre on behalf of the people, in accordance with Yahweh's wishes, and they give up their Bashar body, but Yahweh preserves their nefesh soul, as he did with Dode, and he's very clear as to what happens with the Adamah Parah. And that person is chosen because God resonates with their Nesama. Then it isn't a human sacrifice, is it? It's a symbol.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Animal sacrifice.
They get this really screwed up in rabbinical Judaism.
Oh, yes, they do.
But it isn't, as a matter of fact, for someone like Dode, who had been in Shamaim for 1,000 years and had come back to fulfill Pesach, getting rid of that physical body, which would have been such a burden. You had a near-death experience where you actually left your body, and you were told, it's not your time, girl. You got lots of stuff you still have to do.
Yeah.
But you were, for what seemed like a long time, it may have been just a second or two.
Time disappears.
Yeah,
time does not exist.
But one of the things you noticed was all of that weight and that burden and the
heaviness of being physical.
It's a drag.
Yeah,
and being out of that body is so invigorating, so emancipating, so uplifting, empowering. That Dode would have
human
celebrated
language fails to describe.
Yeah, and when you realize the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, the moment that you're out of this body,
it's different.
It's good. It's a really positive thing. It enables you to be with Yahowah, to travel around the universe, to have so much more capability. So it isn't. It really isn't a sacrifice.
No, you can reverse the E equals MC
It's
squared.
it's a symbolic and very powerful symbolic gift in this regard. I'm being doctored by the. I'm going to be all tied up here. Thank you, sir.
So Paul lied one more time, saying the Torah was all about the flesh.
Yeah. Oh, that's Paul thing. Yeah, it's all about the flesh. And
Paul was all about the flesh.
Listen, there is
I know that.
That's true.
being a man that thinks women are pretty, and as most of us do, there's nothing wrong with God's design. The flesh is good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wonderful in this life, but it's a limiting factor in forevermore. Although I think there are advantages to it, and when there's an advantage to it, we're going to be able to reassume physical form. So these are all really positive teachings.
Incredibly easy.
Yes, from the whole thing. And then their other argument was in one of their songs that by claiming to be the Choder, you're actually stealing what was written about Dode.
Yeah, who is it that introduces? Wait. Who introduces the Choder?
Dode.
Oh, well, Dode does actually. The first writing about the Choder is about Dode. He writes the 14th
So how is that
Mizmor.
even logical?
Yeah,
how is that even possible? How is it
about this
rational?
individual? That would be that's one problem. I guess that is a problem when Dode is introducing the Choder and writing about him and his wife and all the things they're going to achieve on his behalf. That would be a problem. And then of course the long explanation is by Yahowah, but Dode is a Shemach. That is a big honking branch. That is the main branch, man. That is the title of titles from God's point of view relative
the big kahuna
to his son.
That's the guy.
Dode's
the one.
A Choder is either a stick, a stem, or a sucker. A stick, a stem, or a sucker. It's one step up from a palmoni. It shows you step up from a palmoni. And what for those who don't know, palmoni was used to describe a role that I play in Daniel. So anyway, what Yahowah is saying through Yahowah is that I can take a damn stick, and if I enable that stick with the 7 spirits, and actually there's an 8th in there because it follows on that reasoning becomes the 8th. That if I can able a stick to reintroduce my name and to reacquaint my people with my son, and to write about this, a sign that I can lift up, then you might want to trust me.
But it is a smart stick.
But it is, yeah. In fact, what we are told is that twice and by Yahowah that he is a smart stick because he's chakma. He's a smart stick. Yahowah has some fun with me, and when he's talking about it, he's also a verbose stick.
Yeah, a lot of words.
Hey,
hi, he's
sweetheart.
not the only one. Yahowah, both we know you very well.
Yeah, that brought a smile to your face.
Always.
He's a happy papa. You guys may not all be able to see JB's daughter. Darlene just came into the picture. So the Choder cannot be the Shemach.
Nope.
The Choder is as remote to the Shemach as the moon is to the sun.
Yeah, you
400 times smaller, and it doesn't even produce its own light. Okay, they are really, really different, and it is, if you're Dode to go through what he went through and to be demoted from the main branch to a lousy stick would be gross.
Grotesque,
perverted,
twisted.
To be a person and
malicious.
To be part of the story as a stick, that's a pretty cool thing. Mm-hmm. And it's the best part of all is that there's not a lot of expectations in a stick. Yeah.
I don't know. Sticks can do pretty awesome things. I've seen them
The
train
orchestra.
horses and
Yeah,
big
well, you know what?
orchestra.
Yeah, orchestra. Well, actually, the
You
most
can,
interesting thing
yeah.
is that Yahowah actually explains two of the things that the stick is going to do. One is that the stick is responsible for being essentially a club of justice, and you can use the stick for that.
And to beat the olives off the tree.
And that is the other one. You beat the olives off the tree. Yahowah is saying that the olives are literally going to be beaten off this tree with a stick. So, the Torah is a stick.
I don't mind holding the stick to beat the olives off the tree.
And by the way, you have to beat those daggone olives because Jews are really, really tough. They're obstinate. They don't want to let go of that tree. And so, sometimes you just got to let go and trust Yah. Wait, this is what they need to do.
The hook on the end.
So it is pretty cool to see this, and then you realize, well, JB, you knew these people too. How is it possible that with all of the teaching that we provided, all of these 35 books, all of the audio programs explaining them, did we have people that heard the words and didn't seem to be able to perceive any of it?
No, they've gone backwards.
Oh, backsliding daughter.
They use perfection as a weapon, just like that's what perfection is to the religious. It's a weapon of control. That's what they've reverted back to.
I would say it's more covert psychopathy than anything else. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm a realist.
It's frustrating because it means that you, in a role, and we have all entered the role as teachers. Our goal is to teach about Yahowah and his name and his son and his covenant and his mikra invitations to meet, and about his people and about his timeline and his plan. We are teachers, which means that we are learners. You learn and then you teach, and that is a lovely process. And if you want to project perfection on that, then what you've done is you've eliminated the entire process. Because if God were to start with your first day in the covenant, that you know everything and you're right about everything, where do you go from there? How do you value anything?
What's the point?
How do you contribute anything?
I'm sorry, but I don't think they're looking for perfection.
So, JB, wouldn't that be awful? You started the
God.
process of translating.
It's smoke and mirrors.
Where did it lead you?
To the truth, to Yahweh.
And to growing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And there were things that you started with that you thought were true. Weren't there things you started with that you thought might have been true that you learned the more that you translated, the more that you thought, you said, wait, maybe there's a better way to look at that?
Yeah. I mean, heck, even Yahweh's name, when I first came, it was, everything I read said Yahweh. I'm like, okay, well, that. And then you start examining the words, you're like, well, no, that the Wah never, it makes the O sound. So, we got to drop that, change that.
Change that. Yes. That's the whole value of learning and the enjoyment of learning. And it gives Yahowah the opportunity that he wants. If God wanted perfection, then all he would have to do is have a bunch of robots comprised of light that parroted himself back to him. Mm-hmm. And yet there's no
that locker scene in Men in Black.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, the locker scene in Men in Black. Well, actually, they were all dunderheads, but
that's religion.
But
people love religion,
and
especially people who have been religiously abused. They like to religiously abuse others.
Yeah, I would say too that I know this is true of you, JB, and I know that it is true with you, Kirk. Is that the thing that was the most endearing to you that caused you to say, I'm comfortable being in this company, is that everything that I came to learn, I put face up on the table, which means I gave you the root of the generic form of every word that you can look up yourself. And if there was a significant variation from the way it's rendered elsewhere, I would explain how I came to my conclusion versus other people. So I was all cards right up on the table. And if I didn't know, I said I didn't know. But the single most endearing thing is, and this is really rare, when I realized that I had made a mistake or that there was a better way of looking at something, I went back and I rewrote the books and I explained, I think I got this wrong. I think this is a better way of looking at it.
Nobody does that. They defend their bad choices.
They will defend their...
at some point because I was going to run out of paper because I'd have to throw away copy away and print out the next one.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about that, but that is the...
I'd buy books and throw them out.
I think what it does is it demonstrates integrity.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that you're willing to say, I think I was wrong, and here's why. And this is what I now conclude is right.
Most people think admitting you're wrong will lose you credibility. But
no,
to an intellectually honest person, it will gain you credibility.
That's correct. With the wrong audience, never saying that you're wrong. Like, for example, with the wrong audience, saying that the Christian New Testament is the inerrant word of God. Jerry Falwell used to say that. That was his whole litmus test. If you wouldn't say the New Testament was the inerrant word of God, then you were a foe.
You were in the club.
Yeah, you weren't in the club. And of course, there's more errors in it than there are words by two times.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything in it that's actually true.
Nope.
But that is their view, is that the text was perfect.
And yet it is the commission of a crime.
Yeah, so of course the whole thing is nothing but a criminal act. It's stealing Dode's identity and the inheritance of God's people.
Kind of like cyber
and so
stalking.
with the unthinking audience, it's the same issue with the Quran. They say the Quran is mubin, it is perfect.
Oh,
and of course it's the worst book ever written. But to a religious audience, saying that it's perfect resonates with them. Mm-hmm. And so with the wrong people, the people who will believe as opposed to think, never admitting that you're wrong appeals to them. With a rational, thoughtful person who enjoys evidence and reason, admitting that you're wrong and showing how you came to realize that you're wrong, that you didn't make the mistake for any reason other than this is what appeared to be the case. And now you've learned something new, which means that I'm going to go back and make that correction. That actually earns credibility with people who are thoughtful.
Yeah.
And so it actually was a screening mechanism for the covenant family. If you can't deal with that, then you shouldn't be in the covenant family.
Your ideas have to pass the test of being out in the world. I mean, there has to be this open debate about whether this idea works or doesn't work. And if you can't defend it, then obviously it doesn't work. Correct. And that's part of their biggest problem is they just want to run and say, oh, we'll go ask mama. Whenever I was trying to say, you might be onto something here with this chakma thing. I don't think you are with this wisdom mashal, but if we debate this, then we can get to the root of whether it works or not. And, it's not up for debate. Go ask mama, and that doesn't work. Your ideas don't.
Well, of course, because does mommy ever answer does mommy ever have a speaking role? Is there any place you can go to Spirit Mom in the text of the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms that says Spirit Mom is saying the following? Right. Is there any place you can go ask mommy?
Nope. And if you're hearing voices, I want to question.
You might want to check with your local mental health provider.
Well, it doesn't pass the test as well. It doesn't help other people. It may help that one person. Let's presume it's not it's a benign voice, okay? But at the same time, that doesn't help anybody else. It doesn't pass the test. And
then you're also dealing with the reality that I was the first to write extensively about how ruach is a feminine noun, and that therefore God, who always presents himself in a masculine form, 100% of the time you read about God speaking, he's always refers to himself as either he or father. And it's always masculine.
And his ruach.
Yeah, it's always masculine. Now, he even referred to the ruach as his.
That's right.
But it doesn't change the fact that God is not a man or a woman, but yet he has primarily paternal characteristics, but he has some very nurturing characteristics too. And we as people, men have both male and female characteristics, where women are are primarily female. We, X and Y, we are both have both. I thought it was insightful to write that God has a male and female characteristic, and as explained really in the garden when he is saying that he created male and female in his image, he created them. And so that God's got to have some maternal characteristics, even though he actually doesn't speak of them. It's intuitive from the various things you read in the text. And so I probably had 1,000 references to the maternal aspects of God's nature, more so than anybody ever in history. And of course, their approach, the rebellious approach, was, we're going to condemn you and we're going to replace you because you don't give our mother goddess, our mother God, her due. When again, no one had ever done more in this regard than I did. In fact, I went so far that I actually had to do a mammaectomy and tone it back. But
none of them would have even known that if it weren't for what you wrote.
Pardon?
I said none of them would have even known that there was any female aspect to God if it was what you wrote.
Of course,
that's correct. And that's absolutely correct. And one of the things, though, that was always true, that if I spoke of like Isha, when God says, I want you to come into the presence of the Isha, and Isha is either woman or fire. And so it's kind of the more maternal or feminine aspects of fire that were being encouraged to draw close to. It was just saying, I want you to draw close to the light of God. And one of the things I was always very careful of is that I never presented the Ruach as an independent character. She was always part of Yahweh, used by Yahweh for very special purposes. But the Ruach is just an extension of Yahweh, set apart from Yahweh to accomplish things, and is absolutely not a persona. You can't say mom and dad God. Right. And that's what they're writing. They write mom and dad God. They changed Yahweh's name to Yahweh and claim that Yahweh says that I'm mommy and daddy God.
Mm-hmm.
They presented it as two different entities.
Two entirely
God
different
is now schizophrenic.
Personas. They sing songs to Mother God. They claim to speak for Mother God. And that all began by this woman who was trying to write herself into the story, claiming that the eighth Mishal,
First,
proverb,
wanted to be the Gozal.
was entirely devoted to Mother God.
Yeah.
So, fellas, what's the Hebrew word for mother?
M.
Yeah, that's correct. It's M. And what is the Hebrew word for spirit?
Ruach.
Ruach. Yeah. Okay. In this eighth mashal that Dode wrote, how many times does M appear?
None.
Zero.
How many times does Ruach appear?
None.
Zero.
So can the eighth mashal speak of spirit mom if mom and spirit aren't even in it?
Boy, you asked the tough questions.
I know, these are tough questions. So it does use the pronoun she, and it's not so much the pronoun, but in Hebrew, verbs are you'll find as prefixes and suffixes. You're going to find the pronouns and also conjunctions and prepositions. They're all associated and interconnected with the verb. And so a verb can be written in first, second, or third person, masculine or feminine, singular or plural. Mm-hmm. Not all verbs are, but many verbs are. And so the verbs in this case were written in feminine, singular, third person, feminine, singular, which would be she, right? Mm-hmm. Why were the verbs written in third person, feminine, singular?
Because the subject they're talking about is someone else.
The subject throughout the entire mashal is chakma. Chakma with the ending is a feminine noun.
Mhm.
And so if you're going to speak of a feminine noun, you have to address the feminine noun using the feminine pronoun. And that's so the only reference to female in it is chakma.
Yeah. Wow.
And you tell them that and said, okay, first of all, you can't accuse me of not making a big enough deal about the feminine nature of maternal nature of the ruach, because I practically invented it. And I probably spoke of it 1,000 times. So you're lying if you're going to say that's your motivation. And oh, by the way, I have read the 8th mashal. I've read it in Hebrew. I've read it in English. And I'm here to tell you there is no reference to a spirit or a mom. And the only reason there's a feminine reference is because chakma is feminine. So you may want to rethink your position before you go all crazy.
But this is the 6th time you've corrected these type of attacks, thinkings, perversions of the Torah. So look, it's not about that. It's obviously malicious intent.
Yeah, of course. But you know how their counter to me was? Their counter was that I didn't understand Yahweh's name. and the reason I did not understand Yahweh's name, if I'm going to be credited, if you're going to discard me for a reason, not understanding Yahweh's name would have to be last among those reasons. But logic didn't matter. So it was Yahweh's name. And what they claim I did not understand is that the Yod, which is the first letter in Yahweh's name, spoke of dad. But have you looked up Yod in a Hebrew lexicon? It's a feminine noun.
That's right.
And then they said the tent peg, the wah, because I guess it kind of had a woman's reproductive organ look to it from their perspective. And she said, the tabernacle represented the woman's vagina, just like the early Christians did with their fixation on Asherah. And she said the wah then was mom. So it's dad plus mom. The wah is is affirmation that that's mom in the name. You ever look up the Hebrew word wah? It's masculine. It's masculine. Oh well. So thank you very much for playing.
Yeah.
Oh, and the two people
the
two people that were standing up and reaching up to God, they were them.
Of course.
As mom and dad's children.
Desperate to put herself in the story.
That's what happens when you draw your conclusions and then try and translate the scripture to fit it.
Yes.
Yes.
There we go.
There you go. Or you're playing the game that Paul played, and that I need some justifications here. So I'm going to misappropriate things, pull them out of context, misrepresent them, and say that the opposite of what is said it justifies my new religion.
Yep. Lazy thinker doesn't do the work, yet claims it's all true.
But the reason this is helpful for us to discuss is because we have come a long way in 24 years. Yeah. We've learned a lot. We've shared a lot. When you have written as much, and JB, you've written a lot, and I've written even more. In fact, if you looked at the 25,000 pages, I've probably written 5 times more than all of the other prophets combined. That's a lot.
Easily.
Not only that, what we've learned in the past 6 months.
When you commit what you have, and you do your own translations, and you go back to the earliest sources, and you correct for the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then you correct to scrub them of the diacritical markings, so you're getting right to the letters themselves, and then you're going to the original alphabet and looking at the shape of letters to help understand what these words mean, and then you look at every root of every word and related words to make certain that you're conveying the correct and complete meaning of these words. And you've then created an amplified translation format that's unlike any that has ever existed previously. And then you write commentary and insights that are derived from this, and you have 5,000 unheralded insights. You're making yourself exceedingly vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
With every time you make a statement, this is my translation, this is why I came up with it this way, and these are the conclusions that can be drawn from it, and these, even more importantly, are the insights that affect our relationship with God and our understanding of God. With every statement, you make yourself vulnerable when you put it in writing.
And those who twist and pervert Yahweh's name, message, nature, and authorized implements are also making themselves very vulnerable.
Yeah. And I will share one other thing too with you, is that JB and I know Kirk, you as well, and Leah, you also. You go back to the time where I wouldn't even say my own name when we did our Blog Talk Radio programs.
Oh, yeah.
And I wouldn't say my name for a single reason. I wanted to be anonymous.
Yeah.
I began the first book saying, I'm anonymous. I'm going to use this name, Yada, because it's the process of knowing and of understanding. So I think that describes what we're all about here. But I'm not part of this story. I don't want to be part of the story. I want to be invisible to the story. The story is not about me. It's about everybody else in this story. And I went about for the first at least 10 years and maybe 15 years being Yada, totally and completely anonymous.
Yes.
In fact, if people would write, they would only write to Yada. And if they were to thank me for something, I'd say, no, I had nothing to do with it. I'm just here to share what I'm learning. I'm enjoying learning and I'm enjoying sharing. Credit Yahowah for it. That was really cool because what you have there is total opportunity without any responsibility. That's as good as it gets. Truly, it's as good as it gets. Opportunity without responsibility is as good as it gets.
Yes. However, I do recall that when you were retranslating into what is now goddamn religion, you explicitly said that you would love to judge Paul. Now you get to do that.
Well, you know, when I was writing Prophet of Doom, I took a different approach to Prophet of Doom. I felt with Prophet of Doom, if I don't publish Prophet of Doom under my own name, it says that I'm hiding, that I'm afraid of something. God had made the promise he was going to protect me. I was going to demonstrate my complete trust in him to do so. And so I did those 10,000 radio interviews under my own name, and I wrote the book under my own name. I took all the hits under my own name, all the death threats under my own name. I thought that was important to stand up there. And then when we moved into Yada Yahowah, I thought it was important to be anonymous. And being anonymous is really cool.
And were you ever hurt or physically attacked or anything like that since Yahowah made that deal with you? No.
But the problem with that is that's not what Yahowah wanted. And the promise that I made at the beginning, I have honored all the way through. We go where the words lead. And if God says something that's uncomfortable, we still go there. And we try to understand why he chose that. And when dealing for the observation series with the Choder, and you're saying, this speaks of something that is really remarkable. Has there ever been anyone that fits this description? Is there anything in our history? Is there anyone on the horizon? Is there anything that could possibly meet this? And then we're dealing with going on in Yashayani, starts speaking of the Zeroah using different definitions than the definition that we found in the Torah. The Torah's definition of Zeroah is sacrificial lamb. But Zeroah is used elsewhere to describe other things. Strong arm of God is one of them. But it's the one who is productive and cultivating the harvest.
Yep.
And then it took us, when I was trying to, because JB, I'm sure you've done this, and probably when you're writing your glossary, you do this too, Kirk, but JB, you would have done this when you started writing commentary, is that when you come up with a word that's difficult to translate and you want to have some confidence that you're doing it correctly, the first thing you'll do is, after you've examined at least 7 or 8 lexicons, and then you've looked at the letters, is you'll go back to the first use in the Torah. And okay, now you've got a pretty good base. And then you try, if it's still a really challenging word that you know somehow is really important, then you'll see if you can develop a working definition around the first use and the lexicons that you can consistently apply throughout, so that you could always translate the word consistently. And that's when I looked up sometimes I get a little pedantic about things. And I looked up every single use of Zeroah all the way through.
Yep.
And one of them was in the introduction to Isaiah 53, Yahshua 53, on the lamb that we laid the guilt of us all for going astray was laid upon. And it said, if you want to understand this, you first need to have some appreciation for the fellow who figured out who the Zeroah are. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, well, that's not what I expected. Okay, so what does that mean? And it took me directly to the next use, and I like I think it's called the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, and it will have on every challenging word every place that it's used. And so it's kind of a fun way to go, because it'll break down the uses. If it's arm, it'll say, here's how it's used as arm. Here's how it's used as shoulder. Here's how it's used as sacrificial lamb. And so it goes all the way through it. And it pointed to one in 2 Chronicles 6. And you read that and you say, wait a minute. There is nobody that meets this condition. And it's speaking of an observant foreigner, and it's whose voice is coming out of the sky, and that he's written all this that his people need to read and listen to and then respond to. And you're saying, oh, this is not good.
Conversation for you to put on your big boy pants, and
this is just not good. Mm-hmm. And then sometime later, I'm retranslating Yahshua 17, which speaks of the events, like, for example, the dissecting of Israel at just prior to the Shabbat harvest, which is the same two-state solution that is spoken of twice elsewhere. And also always in association with Shabbat. And I'm reading that, and it leads, when it goes to Towrah, it not only speaks of the Zeroah's role, but introduces the parah. And you're saying, oh my God, I know about that parah. I tried to make sense of the sacrifice of the Adam of parah in Numbers 19 because no one seemed to understand it. That's the parah? And then you go to this introduction of the choder and Yahshua 11. And in the end of the first sentence, he says, oh, by the way, the choder is also the parah.
And then I asked you, are you the red heifer?
Oh yeah, then when I was
like, wait, does that mean that?
I said, this is really not good.
Heifer?
This is really, 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 really not good, and it's not good because there is only one thing more difficult, fellas, than telling a story that no one wants to hear, than telling a story that literally destroys the three so-called Abrahamic religions, completely eviscerates Christianity and its credibility, Judaism and its credibility, and Islam and its credibility, and that explains that God is anti-religious and anti-political. Telling that story makes a person exceedingly unpopular. If you don't think so, spend a day with me on X. All right? I think I have like 25,000 posts for, a handful of followers. It is the surest way, and I'm spanked all the time by X. And by the way, though, every time now I challenge X says, yeah, we're sorry, you were right. But they keep me throttled anyway, But not that it matters, because you're not going to resonate with people when your whole thing is, I'm telling you that God has a name, it's Yahweh.
Mhm.
I'm telling you that Jesus never existed, and the entire Christian New Testament
And that God can't die.
That God can't die. Man didn't kill a guy.
Idiots.
Jews most certainly didn't crucify him. And oh, by the way, it's the guy that you think is dead and buried that is actually the Messiah and the Son of God, and he's the one that was crucified the second to three lives. That makes a person subject to lots of harassment. But there is one thing worse than that. If you want to be abused, tell them that God chose to call you out in his story, and he has like 1,000 references to the role you're playing. And none of the references are flattering. He's very complimentary. None of the titles are flattering. I mean, they're not as bad as Plumoni, but they're they're at the league of Choder. Choder is a stick or a sucker. They're on the league of Nakar. Okay, so it's observant, but he's a damn foreigner, right?
Yeah.
And you look at Yahshua says the man from Edom is going to save money. Well, you ever look what God said about Esau? And you're going to be the man from Edom. This is not complimentary. And when he says, oh, by the way, you're playing the role of the Adam of Parah. Well, the Adam of Parah gets whacked.
Yeah.
So guess what it's like?
And by the way, Parah, well, it means productive bull. It's thought to be a girly cow.
Mhm.
Yeah. I drew a picture of that, I think.
None of these terms are flattering. I mean, that's by design. But when you say, okay, God has not only said this, but there is no other option, and we're running out of time.
Yeah.
And we have been the living embodiment of this now for 24 years and have done exactly what this says. And the first to figure out like 1,000 things that need to be known to accomplish this job. But when you say you are the Choder, and you are the Zeroah, and you are the Adam of Parah, and you are the Nakar, holy crap, do you get whacked?
Yeah.
I was telling Leah this morning, Leah came into my study this morning, and it was like 5:30 in the morning. And I said, I think I've had it with this whole thing. I think if God gives me one more call out, I am just going to scream. I'm going to have a Moshe moment. So here, God, I'm telling you, if you give me one more call out on this, or one more daggone title,
call me
you're going to have
one more time.
Yeah, you're going to have a Moshe moment on you. I know that you have some confidence, and I'm going to stick to the job, but you're really pushing it. You're really beginning to push it.
So now you know what it feels like to be chosen, don't you?
Yeah, but
no, Salah. Think about that.
Yeah, I know, but
it is a heavy burden.
It is,
and it is to show empathy for Yehuda and Yisrael.
You keep in mind the role is de minimis, yet important at this time, but it's the same role that Yahweh introduced in the fourth day of creation.
It's so important that if it doesn't happen,
well, it's actually
Yahweh just wants to collapse the whole world. Like,
so in the fourth day of creation, he speaks of a greater and lesser luminary, and he says there are signs for the Moed, and it turns out that there's two fellows that are sacrificed during the Moed. And you find that there's one that Yahweh says is as brilliant as the sun. And then when he says he's coming back as brilliant as the sun, he mentions his eternal relationship with the moon right after that. And then you realize that the moon is 400 times smaller, but it reflects the sun's light. It doesn't have any light of its own, but it reflects its sun's light. It serves a purpose. In the dark hours of humanity, it is reflecting the sun's brilliance. And you say, well, that's pretty hard to deny in terms of what our relationship is, but you can still feel comfortable being the lesser luminary because it is so far diminished from the responsibility that Dode has. Mm-hmm. I'm okay. I'm okay with that. When you're a stick versus the branch, that's okay.
Number 2 is a comfy place to be for sure.
Yeah, it is. As I used to tell people all the time back in the time when I had fast airplanes and big boats. is that there's something much better than owning a fast airplane and a big boat.
Having a friend with
Being
you.
your
Having a
friend.
friend that does. You've got all the benefit without any of the responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, that's why the anonymous thing works really, really well. So, you know, those kind of things were okay. But then you realize, why did Yahowah present the 2 trees in the garden and only 1 tree was had anything said about it? It said there was a tree of life, but then it just left it.
Right.
And then it explained that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he said, by the way, you can eat from any tree you want to. It's just there's a consequence over here of this tree. If you eat from this tree, that eventually you're going to face death. And you find out, but there's the tree of lives. So what's the relationship if eating the tree of knowledge will cause you to eventually die, and you got the tree of lives over here? Isn't there a relationship between them?
No.
One would think.
One would think, wouldn't you? And that they could have just eaten from the tree of lives if they really processed what the tree of knowledge had to say and understood the errors that the tree of knowledge would have provided. So they had to be excluded out of the garden for that very purpose, so that we now know that the reason the guy picking up the sticks got in so much trouble is he was uprooting the trees. And the trees are how we come back, because it's the tree of knowledge that brings us back to the tree of lives.
And the woman that was in the garden that Hashatan deceived, she was not Isha. She was Nakba.
Mm-hmm.
That is the word for her.
Yeah, it's an interesting word.
It's very interesting.
But anyway, Leah has a total fascination with this word, and if I don't get to every place the word comes up before too long, she's going to disown me. So I'm going to have to
Get motivated.
But oh my gosh, you know, I got so much to translate, and now I'm only doing this as a part-time job because of the blog and because of the social media
saying we need to take you to China and clone you and have like 6 of you all working here at the same time.
So anyway, it's just fun to see. God is such a great storyteller, how he brings all of those elements, the 2 trees, the greater and lesser luminary, brings it all, the story of Abraham and Sarah, and how the story of, you know, what took place on Mount Moriah with Abraham and Yishak, and then God interjecting himself after he's talked about Yishak being Abraham's only son whom he loves, and that don't take the life of your only son whom you love. I'm going to provide the lamb, and then to make the connection. Wait a minute, God's called one person beloved, and he said that he was my firstborn son. There's a connection here, and that's how Dode figured it out. And so you go through these things and you realize this is the best story ever told. Mm-hmm. There are so many insights that you could spend an eternity studying this and still learn something new the next day.
Right. Yeah, as much as we know, we're still only scratching the surface.
We are.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's why I also think that sometimes there's this tendency to think that when we have the mortal remnant, and Yahweh's returning with Dode, and he's returned the conditions back to the Garden of Eden. Well, first of all, was it possible to be mistaken about God in the Garden of Eden?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So if God's consistent, will it be possible to be mistaken about God and when he returns the earth to the Garden of Eden? Absolutely.
Yeah.
God said he's going to write his Torah inside of us. But isn't that a little bit like JB, you translating it without commentary?
Yeah. Without that, you don't. Yeah, you can have it memorized edge to edge, and it wouldn't matter.
Correct. And it's, by the way, it's when you're simply writing the translation, you don't own it. When you're writing the commentary and providing insights about it, you own it. It becomes part of you.
Oh yeah.
By owning it, I mean that in a positive sense, that it literally becomes part of the fabric of your life.
I have a tendency to actually end up revising my translations as I start writing the commentary, because I start making connections.
I do every one.
Makes sense.
You know, I'm writing. I wrote the translations for Numbers 13 over these last few days, and I started to write the commentary for them, and I went back and rewrote the translations, because when you read it and you get all the way to the end, you see all the pieces fit back together. You see, I think there's something here that I missed, something that could be said better. Like, for example, there was 36 names that were listed because there was the spy came from a particular tribe. The tribe name was mentioned, and then there was the person's name, and then they were the son of another person. So there's 3 names for each of them. Mm-hmm. And just to get it down on paper, the first thing I did is I used the Strongs, because Strongs probably particularly on rare things that don't come up a lot, Strongs will usually point you to a root. But every time they pointed to a root, and I'm saying, I'm not really sure. That's not very comfortable. I put it down and it became just this mishmash. So it was just totally chaotic. And I said, I'm going to write what I think this is trying to say. And then I'm going to go back in. I'm going to look up every word again. I'm going to look up every word that shares the same letters. And do the root analysis on my own as opposed to using a lexicon. And I did it, and then I went from, this is just a cluster of mess, to now every one of the 12 was a sentence, and every one of the 12 had a message. Mm-hmm. And the message was primarily, hey, Dod's the kinsman redeemer. He is the beloved son. He is the right hand. He is the one that is going to increase you and elongate your life, and all of these kinds of things. And all of a sudden, all 12 were sentences. So then you realize, okay, well, the difference is if you do a cursory analysis, then you're just going to see names, and they're not going to mean anything to you. If you do a quick study, you're going to see chaos. But if you're really willing to invest the time and to say, every time that Yahweh provides a list of names, if you analyze the meaning of the names and you realize the order that he presented them, he's going to take you from one place to another.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's just so consistent. Is that I just couldn't walk away from this list of names without recognizing it isn't Yah's nature.
I wouldn't have let you.
It isn't Yah's nature. I need to go back. And so you see, you really have the 3 levels of understanding. Hi, sweetheart. Yeah, JB got another neck hug. She's at a wonderful age. You're a lucky man. Yeah, and she's a cutie too. The beauty of family. But if you are just a series of names, you learn nothing. Just to read a series of names, like reading the genealogies, and you just say, okay, it's just a bunch of names. You learn literally nothing. Then if you do a cursory study, which would kind of be like the leprous hornets, you do a cursory study, you don't really have a full appreciation of how all these things fit together, and you come up with this chaotic hodgepodge. Or you can spend a day at it and look at every word that has a similar association. I think we're looking for batteries, and we're going to do something here briefly. But you can go through it and really do Shamar as Shamar is intended, being exploring, observant, seeking complete understanding, and all of a sudden you end up being enlightened.
Yeah.
So this is really a wonderful combination. We are at an hour and a half on this program, and normally we go to 2 hours. And we've those far on this program, we haven't read a single line from the text that we were going to pursue. But if you don't know, I live in the middle of the Caribbean Sea with our furry face son, Rich, and with Leia and our other 2 little fur balls here. And when you do that, there's only one way to have internet, really, and that's Starlink. And we go up through a satellite. There's a tropical storm, there's a hurricane now that is passing directly north of us, and it just hit. We are having torrential rains right now, which we need. We're having torrential rains and exceedingly thick and ferocious clouds because we just 30 seconds ago got the first band. Our internet's going to fail.
Yep.
And so rather than just fail and we're just looking stupid here, I think it's probably better that after an hour and a half,
graceful exit.
that we have a graceful exit. It's really been fun because we did this entire program just, talking about family related stuff. And one of the things that, I want to share is that for anybody that's listening and saying, why would you bring up the fractures and the family? The reason for that is that's the whole story.
Yep.
That isn't just rather than being a knock that say, wait a minute, you had somebody that's part of your family and they're not part of your family anymore. That means that you're certainly not perfect in God's. No, every story that God tells is of a fractured family.
Yes.
God has known nothing but a fractured family since He began with us. I mean, Adam and Chawah. All the rifts between Abraham and Sarah. You look at the children of Israel, and they started off fractured. They
went after Moshe's wife.
Oh my goodness! And you even have the breakup between Esau and Jacob. The friction between Ishmael and Isaac. It's just one mess after another of fractured families. And then you get to the Torah and you have Moshe's own brother and sister coming after him. And
Rachel and Leah hated each other.
Oh, and yeah, they did.
So you think your family, one of your kids never sold the other one into slavery?
Yeah, but probably not. But they did in Yahowah's family. They did, and then they made a treaty with a group of people right after that. Made a treaty with them with the purpose intent of having that person or that community relax, and then they came in and they said, okay, for you to be part of us, you need to be circumcised as adults. Yeah. They circumcised them, and while they were, I can't really walk so good right now, they went and slaughtered them.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about bad. They were really bad.
They were.
Look what Benjamin did. I mean, horrible. So that's all God has known is a fractured family. That's why He told Hosea, I want you to be able to write with me the divorce letter to Israel. And the best way you're going to be able to do this is with some empathy. And so I want you to marry a religious whore.
Yep.
And, God took the man who was the most articulate at explaining religious adultery to Jews. And that man, of course, was Elijah. And He took him to be with him because, he says, I really like that. I want a guy that can articulate the pain that I'm dealing with.
You're going to be handy later.
Right. So
for this guy,
as I was explaining, we have a woman that works here, and she has there's 3 people that live in her home, and they don't talk to each other. And I went through and says, listen, every human family is fractured on multiple levels. Mm-hmm. And so we understand the pain that we have put God through. The covenant is broken. And if you're going to represent God, you have to have some empathy. And
perhaps Yahowah's family.
By the way, that means that it's a psychopath. This woman that is opposing us, that has her new group, the mom and dad group, she can't represent God because it's a psychopath, clinically diagnosed psychopath. She has no empathy, so she feigns her emotions to manipulate people because she actually has no genuine emotions. But if you don't have empathy, by having endured what God has endured, you can't speak for Him. Look at Dode. And what happened to him with his own son rebelling against him. So,
and perhaps Yahowah's family is so broken that it needed, and he needed, outside mediation.
Right. Well, why would that outside mediation? With the NACRI, the observant foreigner. In fact, that's the point I was going to make. Why do you think that when Yahshua is introducing the final savior of the mortal remnant of Israel, why does he call him the man from Edom? Isn't Edom the estranged brother, the twin brother of Jacob.
Yes.
And if he's the man from Edom, isn't he there named this way to finally reconcile that brokenness that has been Israel all this time?
Yeah.
So it is through the whole process of coming to understand, and in here and in here, broken families and failed marriages and successful loves, that we can empathize
And adultery.
with God, and that we can communicate with God, and that you come to realize too that, as you mentioned the word adultery has nothing to do in Yah's testimony with sexuality, because we would define adultery as a married man or a woman having an affair with another person. And yet Dode, God's beloved, he had 10 concubines. Concubines are there for a reason.
He had more sex than he knew what to do with.
They're not there to
Come
have
on.
tea and crumpets.
Get out of here.
Okay? And he had 8 wives. So clearly, multiple wives isn't an issue with God. There is no monogamy in his mindset. And he never once criticizes what we would consider to be provocative
Polyamory.
Polyamory or any kind of mutually
beneficial love.
Beneficial love ever.
Never.
And he just says, don't do animals. That's really gross. Not fair to the animal, and it's really gross if you're just becoming
Don't do
animals.
family.
Don't do incest.
And don't rape.
No family. Can't do mommy. Can't do daddy. Can't do your sisters. Don't do family. Don't do pedophilia. Don't do rape. But does he ever say, boy, as if you kiss a boy or a girl and you're not married to them, stone them? No. Adultery is so obviously religious whoredom, which is why when Yahweh said, let me explain this to you in case you didn't get it, as I write this letter of divorce to you, I am having a guy that I asked to marry a religious whore.
Deliver it.
Deliver it. Now,
do you get the point?
Do you get the point here? And
no, they still don't get the point. And the whole, really, the leprous queen is actually doing a service in the same way that Hashatan does his service. It sieves out those who are incapable of thinking with logic and reason, and to establish that which is true or untrue with a rational mind. Ergo, there is no possibility these people could be trusted with any type of interdimensional growth. There's no possibility.
Yeah, it was it would
be a very bad thing.
Yahweh has a very low tolerance
for stupid,
and for betrayal. He just has very low tolerance for stupid and betrayal, and he has expectations that if we're going to benefit from a relationship with him, that we would have the respect enough for him that we would see the job through, that we wouldn't go at it half-heartedly. If he wants something, we're going to do our best to accomplish what it is that he wants achieved. And so he has to have a filtering mechanism. He can't make knowing him so easy that any idiot could do it and makes eternity miserable for all of us, because it would be no different than what we have right now. So it has to be a bit of a challenge. And he has to be distant enough from us that we can still know the truth from him, but without being overwhelmed for him, which I think is the reason when the children of Israel said something stupid, go away, shut up, we never want to hear from you, we never want to see from you again. God says, yeah, hey, I get it. I'm good with that. Because by speaking through flawed individuals, he doesn't overwhelm anybody. He makes certain that free will is genuinely free will. If you're going to know God, you're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to listen to the people that he designates to speak through. And that, by the way, is the reason that I lost my anonymity, is that in the Debatim 18 test, God says that there are two things that you need to know most of all about somebody that is speaking for me. The first thing is they're going to speak in my name and only my name and no other name. And second of all, you're going to see that I designated them. I specifically said, this person is speaking for me. And so the reason that there are so many mentions of this at this time is because we're running out of time. We've got to accomplish something no one has ever done before, which is to get the children of Israel to return to Yahweh, to embrace his name, to accept his son as our Savior, our Messiah, our King, and to recognizing the timing and the purpose and the intent of the covenant and the moed. And we have exceedingly little time to get this done with an exceedingly difficult audience. And so God says, I'm going to tell you who is the one that is speaking for me and the family that will support this individual so that you listen, because that's the deal I made. If I am speaking through somebody, they're going to know it and you're going to know it.
May I make one small correction?
Sure.
Yeah. Yahweh has two sons. Two men he calls his son.
Well, Yahweh has Bakurim, which is many children that are part of his covenant family. There is one person that he goes way out of his way to say, I am his father, he is my son, he is my Bakur, firstborn. It is true that in one of the places, and maybe there's another, but there is one of the places where he is describing the role that we're playing together, that we're working through together, collaborating on, where it says specifically that he views the role that I'm trying to fulfill as a father-son role, as a son.
Every king needs his herald.
And that's appropriate. And it's really appropriate because God's really clear to do something different than he did with Moshe. He only gave Moshe credit after Moshe was gone, called him the greatest of the prophets. But he didn't give Moshe a lot of credit during the time they were working together, and he gave him a really difficult job. And
impossible.
Yeah, and that's different. With Dode, Yahweh lavished the praise on Dode. Mm-hmm. And on this job, Yahweh must say 100 times that he's pleased with what we're accomplishing together. It's like Yahweh says, okay, I can learn too. And but if he can't learn, then he can't be infinite. Yeah, he's grow. He's got to learn. And it's like he's saying, okay, these people are kind of fun to work through. And I like the lovable rogues and the strong, bullish personalities and the like. But to make this work, I'm going to have to practice this concept of there's no limit to what you can achieve if you share credit. And so we might view ourselves as nothing but the sucker, but yet God wants to share credit. He wants us to be perceived as his sons that grow with him and partner with him and live with him, grow with him.
Wear the jewels in God's crown.
Yeah, JB, as you were translating, did you come to view God as father and friend, or as Almighty on a throne?
No, definitely as a father, my friend, and I would talk to him while I'm going through it.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, I always saw that as I was translating, he was talking to me.
Yeah,
and that if I could understand it, then he would be talking to us. And my thoughts were the response, So if I deduce something that was interesting from it, that was my thought to him, my response to him. But as you looked at the words and started to study the language, Kirk, what was your reaction? Do you see God as the Almighty on a pedestal that should be feared, or just really comfortable to be around?
Absolutely not. I always look at him as father, friend, helper. But when once you go and you prove that Torah doesn't mean law, and it means teaching and so forth. This is not somebody who's hitting you on the head. I mean, that's Christian stuff. I mean, I was so glad when you wrote that first thing on questioning Paul. I thought that was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And it was lousy compared to what you wound up doing. You know, I know you didn't like it, but I read that and I said, okay, I don't have to worry about that stuff anymore. It's done.
Yeah, we just destroyed it.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
So
and of course, that was one modest length volume, and now there's 5 books, all of which are individually longer than that one.
Because along came Leia and said, "We have to rewrite that."
Rewrite it.
She wasn't upset with my questioning Paul rewrite, which became Twistianity. Although Twistianity was her term, she was didn't like my observations viewpoint where I saw Isaiah damning Christianity, and I knew Christianity so well. I was kind of the Moses of Christianity, in the sense of Moses came out of the religious and political milieu of Mitzrayim and Egypt, and so he knew these things and had rejected them. So I sort of, as I'm going through Isaiah, I see myself as kind of the Moses of Christianity. I had been in that up to my eyeballs, and I had rejected it, but because I had been in it and had rejected it, I knew it.
So you knew all the religious and political scumbags.
I could really tear it to ribbons. Rabbinical Judaism is a very difficult animal. Oh yeah, because they are prolific. You cannot say, where if Christianity can say this is a Christian doctrine. They blame Jews for killing Jesus, for crucifying him, and they do that because they have to have God turn on the Jews and discard them to accept the Gentile Christians, and so the Gentile Christians can inherit their.
It's a very schizophrenic God.
Yeah, the promises God made to them, and so you can say that is a fundamental precept of Christianity. Mm-hmm. You cannot. There is no fundamental precept of Judaism.
Nope.
I mean, with Judaism, once you have, in fact, you couldn't even get a fundamental agreement on Judaism if you're talking to one rabbi. Yeah, and the moment you have 2, you have 10. Yeah. And when you have 10, you have 100. That's just there. So Judaism is just all over the board.
It's a hydra.
You know, at one moment they'll talk about salvation, and the next moment they'll say there's no salvation. One moment they'll talk about Sheol is hell, and the moment they say it doesn't exist.
Okay, I can explain it really easy.
Yeah.
It's like umami. That flavor, you don't know what it is. It's just kind of floating around. You don't, it changes, it distorts, it makes things different. That's Judaism.
It's a much
thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's like umami.
It's a much more difficult animal to nail down.
What is it?
But you can hit it on the main themes, like they're the ones that erased Yahweh's name.
That's
and
right.
They call him Hashem, and they would never write his name. They're the ones who have rabbinical arguments in the Talmud, and they call it Torah. They're the ones that I have not only learned, but proven wrote the Quran. Mm-hmm. The Quran is Talmud stories altered to suit Muhammad's agenda that the rabbis sold. And so when you can prove that those damn rabbis created Islam, the greatest enemy the Jewish people would ever know, then that is an effective attack. When you prove that Paul was the first person to call himself a rabbi, and that he was trained in Jewish religious schools to do exactly what the rabbis do, which is take a position that is counter to God and then twist God's words and citations to justify his deviation from them. He was trained as a rabbi. Without that training, the Christian New Testament doesn't exist.
Yeah, why not? The Torah made him a
created it. And then when it was haunting them, rather than say, wait a minute, everything you're saying is false because all of these things pertain to David as the actual Messiah and Son of God, they didn't do that. Instead, they came up with a false Messiah. And then that false Messiah was conceived by the father of Rabbinic Judaism, Akiba. And he's the one who lied to the Jewish people about a Messiah, ignoring the actual Messiah, while at the same time getting 18,000 of his own acolytes killed, and then bringing the wrath of Rome and getting hundreds of thousands of Jews killed, causing the diaspora. And so they would be slaves in Europe and then susceptible to the Holocaust. And he was the one that caused the land to be renamed Palestine. And that's the father of your religion. You've got to be out of your ever-loving mind. And then you take this version, the Haredim, ultra-Orthodox Judaism, and you realize it was conceived in Ukraine in the 17th century, 18th century.
Do you know how
And you go, what, are you absolutely out of your mind? Then you go to the Star of David that they're all parading around under, and the first use of the Star of David as a symbol of Judaism is in the 14th century in Prague.
Yep.
And it was the symbol that was used by the Roman Catholic Church and then later the Nazis to condemn Jews and dehumanize them. And that becomes your star. And you have the chutzpah to say that star is associated with David as opposed to with Bar Kokhba, who is the son of the star. So there's lots of ways.
We created so many lies, it's hard to keep them all together.
Yeah, to destroy Judaism without having to play with the Torah. Although I had a guy, you probably saw it on Facebook. He was a young Jewish affiliate or a advocate of rabbinic Judaism. He says, you shouldn't be criticizing all Jews because many of us have come back to we worship Hashem and we study the Torah. And so I have my response. And finally he says, listen, I can prove that you're wrong, that God has not separated. He's not divorced the people. Because if you go to Deuteronomy, I've forgotten what the chapter was, but it was like either fourth or sixth chapter. And it says that it talks about God returning to his people in the last days. And he says, that's proof that God is still with his people. And I said, wait a minute. It says in the last day, and it says you're going to return to Yahweh, and you want to tell me that you're with Yahweh and have always been with your Hashem God, and it says here that you're not, but you will eventually return. Didn't you just prove my point?
Yeah.
But then he changed the subject and he said, well, the Torah, which he's been saying, I don't want to read your book because I'm Torah everything. And then I said, well, that's really interesting because the Torah teaching permeates the prophets, and the prophets all contain Torah teaching. But nonetheless, and my books are all based on the Torah. But that's really interesting. He comes up with the idea, says, let me just prove to you the relationship that exists here. Why is there crucifixion? Well, the answer is explained in the Talmud that crucifixion connects the Jewish people with creation. And I'm saying, and then he wrote and he says that proves that the Torah is the bones, but the Talmud is the meat.
Mm.
So I said, thank you again for proving my point. You are Talmud observant, not Torah observant. And by the way, you're wrong. Circumcision is the sign of the covenant. And let me explain to you the nature of this sign, why it was the point of the male anatomy that is responsible for impregnating a female so that you as a couple can raise children, which is the entire purpose of the covenant, is it not?
Now you know why Moshe wanted to kill himself.
And isn't the concept of karat, the word cut, the whole concept of being cut away from the religious and political mantras of humanity so that you can be cut into this relationship with God? It's all about separation and being cut into it. And that's the sign. JB, you actually wrote an entire mini book, really.
About circumcision. I
On
remember
circumcision.
that.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Approaching 200 pages.
Yeah. And circumcision turns out to be the sign of the covenant because it is about cutting off and separating, which is what we must be cut off from the family of man and cut into the family of God to be part of his children, to be among his children. And this separation is the sign that we have agreed to raise our sons and our children to be God's children. what's interesting too, just in the nature of that sign, not only is the 8th day the time that blood actually coagulates and as they would you heal more rapidly than any other time.
You have them less pain receptors.
Right. Yeah. So it's better from all points of view. But what it ultimately does as an adult is it reduces the potential for infection at and increases the opportunity for pleasure at a very important part, at least for us men. We have a tendency to think highly of that part, and it does prevent infection, and it does cause greater pleasure. And God says, so this is going to be my sign. I want you to know the family is enjoyable. The family is all about conceiving children and then raising those children and staying healthy in a family relationship. It's a beautiful.
Say the Hebrew word mul. It actually speaks of cutting off and removing that which is unnecessary and often counterproductive.
Right.
Because it's a lot harder to keep that clean, especially when you're a Jew wandering in the desert for 40 years.
Right. Oh, it's just a beautiful. The symbolism is beautiful, and it has nothing to do with being cut into creation. No. We're actually being cut away from the nature.
The covenant.
Yeah, we're being cut into the covenant and away from.
But what about all the leaks in Mitzrayim?
Yeah.
It's easier than an appendectomy, too. I mean, if the sign of a covenant was cutting off something that you didn't need and you had to do an appendectomy, everybody had to have an appendectomy. I mean, that would be a mess. So
that would be a mess. No, God picked a beautiful symbol. And I'm going to tell you, it's a difficult thing if your parents didn't do what God has asked. There's a gentleman that is very active on X supporting what I've done, very bright fellow. And he says, I had to have it done as an adult. I read your books. I learned what the importance of the sign of the covenant.
Probably not so much fun.
And he says, it was it smarted for a few days. So, there you go. But it gets your attention as a man, but it's the right thing to do.
Welcome to the family.
Yeah, welcome to the family. There's 5 conditions of the covenant. That is the sign of the covenant, and there's 4 other conditions. And the first condition explains the reason for the 5th being a sign. Walk away and separate yourself from the Babel of religion and politics, the family of man, and be set apart unto me. And then, walk to me and allow yourself to be perfected, which is recognizing what Dod did when he not only gave us life, but the most important time was matzah, when he perfected us by carrying our guilt away. Leaving all of our other interesting imperfections, if you will, our character, our unique aptitudes and attitudes and peculiarities, all of those things can remain and be interesting to the family so that we have more fun going forward. I can say, yeah, we're going to go there, but that doesn't have a swimming pool, so I'm not sure Kevin will show up. Yeah, we can go to this place too, but it's really, really electronic. It's not analog, so we may not be able to invite Kirk on this one. So, that kind of stuff is possible. That they don't, there is no guitar, so Rich isn't coming. By the way, we had a guy here today who was fairly hip, one of my island friends, and we're doing the multiple handshake, where you give them one of these and then one of these, and the whole process. And I'm really klutzy at it, because I'm pretty old school.
You're just not cool.
I'm not cool.
No,
but
not.
Rich introduces himself and he says, "But I am cool."
Yes.
I can't do the handshake anymore.
Well, I can't do it. He's got arthritis in the hands, but he said, "Yeah, I am cool." Rich is our cool kid.
No, I'm the cool kid.
Oh, you're the cool kid. Okay.
You're the cool girl.
The cool girl. I'm not. Wookie thinks he's the. Oh, look, hi there, Wookie. How you doing there, handsome? Yeah, I'm going to do this show. We're going to be done, Dad. It's raining outside. I hate it when it rains.
He's terrified it's raining.
Yeah. Wookie doesn't like it when the sky falls. Well, now we've gone the full 2 hours. Here we are. We did make it through the entire 2 hours of Family Hour. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Rich, for being behind the controls. There's a lot going on in a program like this to make it all work and these transitions to work. JB, it is great to see you. We're hoping that you can do not only this show, but many, many more. Kirk, we're glad you're back on the mend, and Kevin, you got to get out of my pool, man.
It's raining. It's raining outside.
It is raining. It is raining in my. Yeah, it is raining in my my pool. So I'm not sure I have any dry towels for you tonight, but we'll do the best we can. Leigh, good to have you back after your trip to Florida.
Yeah,
and
good to be back.
Yep. So
even though I arrived to a shit show, still good to be home.
So happy Shabbat to our covenant family. Oh, yeah, one thought I did read in a post today about a rabbinic Jew that was saying how proud he was that now of young people of a certain age, like 50% of them are do nothing Shabbaters. They won't, pick up a phone, won't answer a phone call, they won't turn on a light,
get in an elevator.
They won't they won't do anything. So they are.
Remember that on Towrah.
Yeah, they have made the. Yeah, that's right. That means they're not going to be participating in Shavuot or Towrah because they're both on the Shabbat. And of course, they would condemn Yahweh and Dode for fulfilling matzah on a Shabbat as well. They would. And they wouldn't ever enter the Sukkah celebration of the millennial Shabbat, because it also begins on a Shabbat. So God has done a nice job there of making certain that they can't capitalize on any of those opportunities because it is for them do nothing day. And by the way, Satan, when the Torahless one, Donald Trump, comes to play, he is going to install do nothing day. So they'll be perfect for them.
Oh yeah, they're going to love him.
They're going to love him. Yeah, it actually says they will love him. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, one and all. We wish you a wonderful Shabbat. We hope we just get a deluge of rain. We could use 3 or 4 inches, and it would be lovely to have it come down. It's particularly since the Malak have done a nice job. They've kept the storm about 150 miles due north of here. And
thanks,
hurricanes. If you're more than 25 to 30 miles from the eye, you can get really blustery winds, but you're not going to get your house blown down. And this one is already a Cat 2. It'll be a Cat 3 by tomorrow, and it is going to pass right around 150 miles north of us, which is a perfect distance because we'll get some breezy conditions, but not too firm, and we should get lots of rain. So
we need the rain.
We're hoping for that. Thank you. Look forward to being with you all tomorrow.
Bye,
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Say goodbye.